How good is your memory? Let's test it out. Memorize these 7 letters. H, K, C, T, N, I, E. Was that hard? Try these 7 letters instead. K, I, T, C, H, E, N. You've probably noticed that the second set of letters spells the word kitchen. So it becomes quite easy to remember these letters since you can chunk them together into one word. Thus, instead of having to remember 7 individual letters, you only need to remember one word. Oh, and by the way, the first 7 letters are actually the same as the second 7 letters. I just put them in a different order. As you can see, it is much easier to remember one word than it is to remember 7 different letters. This also applies in other areas. It's much easier to remember a popular sentence or phrase than it is to remember a random assortment of words. Similarly, it's a lot easier to learn someone else's phone number when they share the same area code and prefix as yours. Since you already know your area code and prefix, you only need to learn 4 new digits. Not hard to do. What should be clear from these examples is that there is a huge difference between working memory and long-term memory. Long-term memory consists of the things that are stored in your brain on a long-term basis. They can be retrieved automatically without having to do much thinking about it. In contrast, working memory is short-term in nature. When trying to learn something for the first time, you are using your working memory. One thing we do know is that working memory is quite limited. Generally speaking, most people have trouble holding more than about 7 items in their working memory at any given time. If we want to remember something on a long-term basis, we need to make sure it transfers to our long-term memory. So how does something transfer to our long-term memory? The answer is simple: repetition. Whether through frequent use, such as our personal phone numbers, or through intentionally reciting something over and over again, repetition places things into our long-term memory. Why is it important to transfer things from our working memory to our long-term memory? This is where we need to understand one of the most important theories in educational psychology: cognitive load theory. First developed in the 1980s by educational psychologist John Sweller, cognitive load theory says that committing things to long-term memory reduces the strain on working memory and enables us to learn more easily. In contrast, the more a new concept taxes our working memory, the harder it is to learn. This has definite implications for our schools. For example, many students struggle with basic algebra because they do not know their times tables by heart. If you need to use a calculator in order to figure out simple questions like 5 times 6, you will find it almost impossible to solve complex math equations. Thus, it really does make sense to make students do multiplication drills until they know the answers by heart. Now, critics often dismiss practice as drill and kill. However, this insulting phrase gets it completely wrong. The reality is that drill leads to skill. By committing basic multiplication facts to memory, students are better able to tackle more difficult math questions. The same holds true in other subject areas. The more students commit to their long-term memory, the more room there is in their working memory to learn challenging new concepts. Contrary to what critics say, memorization is still important today. I'm Michael Zwagstra. Join me next time as we explore how to make our schools better.